Bhakti Puri Maharaj, serving as a director of the Princeton Bhakti Vedanta Institute, and he is a PhD on his undergraduate degree at Rutgers University and completed a master's and PhD in theoretical chemistry from Georgetown University in 70s. After completing postdoctoral work with the National Bureau of Standards in Washington, D.C., Dr. Puri moved to rigorous study and practice of Bhagavad Vedanta philosophy and Bhakti Yoga. He was one of the 5 founding charter members of the original Bhakti Vedanta Institute in 1976 and the original director of the office in Juhu, Mumbai, India, for a number of years. After diving deeper into the study of philosophical relation between Bhagavad Vedanta and Hegel's conceptual realism, Dr. Puri returned to the United States in 1990s, and he opened the Princeton Bhakti Vedanta Institute in 2012. Once some of his early works can be in the Bhakti Vedanta Institute Bulletin series, 1980 to 82, and abundance of more recent work has been seen on ResearchGate and People Link. Dr. Puri is the inspiration behind Sadhu Sangha Google Group, which has been an active forum for the discussion of consciousness studies among many scientists and academics since 2008, as well as the Science and Scientist International Conference series in 2013. Now, with this introduction, I invite Srila Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaji to deliver his address.
Dhanyavad to Srila Bhakti Tiskamshranta Maharaj and Sripad Muni, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj, to our friend Brian Ford and Krishna Kesava, Harinanda, Kanapriya, all the devotees that are here and all professors. Our annual conference has been the result of the work of our Srila Shanta Maharaj and with the help of Muni Maharaj, they have been able to put into reality or manifest in reality what our humble idea was of showing that I guess you can say that science comes from scientists. Matter comes from life, and science comes from the scientists. Sometimes we forget that. It seems science seems to be something self-subsistent as a matter of what nature manifests to us. But it's really what the scientists extract, how they understand nature. That is what we call science. Nature has her own secrets as she reveals herself to us, but the way science has proceeded is to kind of impose a particular straitjacket over nature, which it constrains nature to conform to. That is not the way of proper science, of course. Sometimes it works, but most of the times it doesn't work, actually. For instance, in this matter of life, the origin of life, the scientists want to say that nature or matter produces life. But this is not what nature tells us. Nature all around us tells us that life comes from life. It may appear to the scientific perspective that life is a result of a combination of material elements. But there is no actual evidence that has ever been developed to show that that is the case. We haven't been able to make a mosquito, or as I always say, a blade of grass with the chemicals that are available to us. So why to force upon nature something that is not there? So real science has to take account of what we observe in nature. And we observe not only matter, but the most interesting part of nature is the life, the biological life, or the other forms of life. Besides biological life, there is also the cultural life of human beings. That is a distinct feature of human life. To have culture, to have literature, to have philosophy, religion, etc. Now, these things are also there. We call that part of our reality. But where is the room for that in atomic studies? So anyhow, an objective and open-minded consideration of what is there, what is in our reality, beyond nature, what we might call merely nature, I think cultures are kind of like a second nature or a spiritual nature that is not found there in the original, in the nature we generally refer to as the world. So room has to be made in our thinking for these things too. And it should not all be reduced, this word reductionism. It should not all be reduced to atomic and molecular actions and reactions. We have to consider things in a broader perspective, more philosophical as well as empirical way. Philosophical means in a thoughtful, rational way. Thought and reason are also part of science, but they are hardly ever investigated. And so it's important to understand this. And I think the topic of artificial intelligence versus natural intelligence may help, if we think about them, to shed light on some of these things that we mean by intelligence that is absolutely necessary to create what we call science. That is also a very important part of human life. Practically, it is the thing that distinguishes us from all other forms of intelligence and all other forms of life, is human intelligence. It has a very special significance that we don't find in any of the other life forms on this planet or in this universe. Anyhow, I just want to express my humble gratitude and my humble obeisances to those who have brought me to the point in life where I am. First of all, my original spiritual master, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and then my Shiksha Guru, and Sannyas Guru, Srila Bhakti Raksharadev Goswami Maharaj, and the affectionate guidance and encouragement of our Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Maharaj, and the enthusiasm of our Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj, who always inspired us with his intense serving spirit. And to Srila Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj, who was the current Acharya of the Chaitanya Saraswati Math in India. And Srila Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj, who was always there helping us in the background, but always a very important contribution, making a very important contribution to all of our activities. And to all the dear devotees who are here, and to all the scientists who have helped or have participated in making this conference significant. All of you are very important and part of our efforts. And one of the things that science has kind of misdirected us in is trying to focus too much on the individual things, on the individual persons, or on individual particles, called the atomic idea, atomic conception of life. We're part of a whole. We're part of our community. We're part of the environment. We have an independent status in any of those instances. And to neglect that wholeness or wholesomeness is a very significant mistake that we're making if we think in that way. Somehow, an integral relationship exists between each individual and the whole or the community of which he is a part, the environment of which he is a part, or he or she is a part. And to be able to have that consciousness, that within our consciousness, that wholeness within our consciousness, as a not only an extra part, but as the main part of our thinking. And that is a very important conception to hold. We are part. And Veda has always emphasized this point, that the central point is that the whole is there, and the whole is not impersonal either. It has to do with our personality. Has a the most significant contribution to our own individual personality. And that by neglecting that whole personality, complete whole personality, as Krishna Kesava mentioned in his invocation, that complete whole personality of which we are also an emanation, a whole also within ourselves. But the whole that we come from is greater than the whole that we are in our own self. And that is infinite, and we are a finite whole. I think Cantor would explain this in his mathematics of the infinite, how infinites can come from infinites, and one will be greater than the other. So these are a very important way to develop our thinking about what's going on in our life today in a very scientific and systematic way. Anyhow, I don't want to go too far into this, but my gratitude and obeisances to all our forefathers, our predecessors, and all the current participants. My humble dandavats to you all. My humble obeisances. So first of all, I'd like to dedicate this talk to Srila Bhakti Sri Damodar Maharaj, who was the original founder of the Bhaktivedanta Institute in ISKCON under the direction of Srila Prabhupada, and who I worked with for many years, served with for many years, and has always been a very affectionate and kind and intelligent devotee from whose association I have gained so much in my own spiritual life. So first, we need to explain what we mean by intelligence. If we want to discuss artificial intelligence and natural intelligence, let's try to understand first what we mean by intelligence, and then by artificial and natural, it might become clear what we're talking about here. So the word intelligence comes from the Latin, and the meaning of intelligence in Latin, intelligere, is to understand. This is a very interesting meaning, to understand, because that would lead to the question of what does it mean to think of artificial understanding? Artificial understanding, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about artificial intelligence, but if intelligence means understanding, then what does it artificial understanding mean? So considering the word intelligence in terms of the conjunction of two other words, inter meaning between, and legere to choose or discriminate, may help us to recognize the significance of intelligence as understanding. It implies a judgment or discernment, discrimination, decision, or determination is being made. Now, a very important function of computers is to make decisions mechanically or mathematically by comparing two numerical data entries as greater than, less than, or equal to each other. In this sense, then, computers can be considered mechanical decision makers. Does this then qualify a machine as being intelligent? When the eye, as a sensor, senses the environment, an image is produced on the retina, and the intelligence discerns if an object in the image is bigger or smaller than another object. Comparisons, like bigger or smaller, are not done by the eye or retina, but by the intelligence. The retina, we know, is connected by an optic nerve to the brain. And somehow we consider the brain to be the seat of intelligence or the mind in a modern sense. But anyhow, without going into that problem, and what is the correct point of view on that, we understand that that the brain has something to do, or the mind has something to do with proper interpretation of the sense perceptions. So the sense data have to be processed through a program that performs the comparisons. The comparisons are not made with the sensors. The sensors do not make the comparison. They merely retrieve the data. But it's the intelligence that has to process that data and make decisions or judgments as to which is bigger, which is smaller, which is taller, which is shorter. Human intelligence, however, does not only make quantitative comparisons or judgments. More subtle, less clearly defined qualitative, ethical, emotional, and other types of decisions are also made. In this sense, computers may qualify for certain mechanical decision-making ability, but fall far short of the wider tasks of which human intelligence is capable. Artificial intelligence has never been referred to as artificial understanding. We don't consider machines capable of understanding what they are doing. They are capable of processing information, but we recognize that they do not understand what they are doing at a purely mechanical level. Defining intelligence of the ability to achieve goals in a wide range of environments, which has been mathematically formalized, may only apply when dealing with physical mechanical space. The subjective space in which human intelligence can function is not covered by such definitions. So these definitions that are used also in automated or autonomous cars, achieving goals within a wide range of environments, which has been mathematically formalized. Applies not only in autonomous cars, but in robots and so forth, that people are trying to develop. Yet those types of systems deal only with the physical or mechanical space and time. The subjective arena is not covered by such calculations or such considerations. Basically, existing artificial intelligence machines lag far behind humans in terms of what they call general intelligence, which is sometimes has the capacity to learn how to carry out a huge range of tasks. They may be good at performing certain specific tasks, but beyond that, they are not capable yet. An important and fundamental distinction exists between the massive size of computational machinery compared to the size of the human brain, which would indicate a major difference in their functional operations from a purely material viewpoint. Materialist philosophy considers the physical brain and physical intelligence to be the same substance. Physical brain and psychical intelligence to be the same substance. But traditional philosophy has historically favored the distinction of subjective and objective reality. Whether it is a duality of non-interacting substances or a unity of interacting varieties of being has been a topic of concern in modern times. The more advanced thought on this topic tends toward a dialectical relation of unity and difference. This perspective would certainly disrupt the attempt to explain subjective intelligence in terms of computational decision-making. Sometimes this difference is described as a difference between programming and the physical computer itself. Programs are written by intelligent subjects or objective machines. It is said that Gödel had as his objective to show that syntactic mathematics and therefore mechanical computers could not handle semantic logic and were therefore incompatible with meaningful human intelligence. For example, the meaning of the self-referential phrase, "This statement is false." It is false if it is true, and true if it is false, leading to its being undecidable. If we extend the problem of size and comparing computer to brain beyond the human, the difference becomes even more glaring. Aeronautic and navigational miniaturization in the military technologies is unable to imitate nature, for example, in the instance of the fruit fly or drosophila, despite despite its very small brain size, maneuvers with precision and agility beyond any manufactured mechanical system at much larger scales. It also possesses sensory ability and carries its own energy source, making it viable for weeks. No mechanical system has been able to duplicate this at such minute scales. Plants should also be classified as intelligent based on their ability to sense and model external and internal environments and adjust their morphology, physiology, and phenotype accordingly to ensure self-preservation and reproduction. But they do not possess the neural network-based system or brains of animals. This means that computers based on neural network systems are not able to duplicate or explain natural intelligence in most of nature. Another important feature of plant intelligence is that the major system of a forest, for instance, is below ground in what is called the rhizome. There is a unity in plant life that is more important than the surface life of individual trees, and that makes the individuals viable, without which the individuals would perish. This unity and differentiation is an essential feature in all of life, including human, that is nonetheless most often ignored in scientific studies that take the atomic perspective analysis as the foundation of the scientific method. Computer programs are written with this fundamental atomic idea in mind. A more holistic approach is warranted, but computers are not well suited to such computations, as they are built upon an architecture of conjoined individual parts that are not holistically designed. Autonomous cars would be an example of artificial intelligence practical use, but such cars still have many problems, although promised years ago. The responsibility for any accidents in such cars are not held to be the fault of the computers or the programmers, but the intelligent drivers. Computers are not considered responsible agents. The fact that decision-making can be computerized does not mean that legal judgments or determinations can be made on the basis of artificial
on the basis of
artificial intelligent computers. No one would consider going to an artificial computer, a computer with artificial intelligence, to make a legal judgment. Why? These limitations are important factors to consider in discussing the hype that now surrounds artificial intelligence and the way we think about it. A deeper understanding of what we mean by human intelligence is necessary, especially noted in the area of the scriptural study of the Vedas in particular. The human form of life is considered unique in awakening to one's spiritual nature. This is a philosophical issue requiring thoughtful inquiry and a religious matter involving meditation. Neither of these activities can be performed by computers. They are hardly performed by the average human intelligence, what to speak of computers, although it is their most unique and important ability as a human being. Anyhow, these are some of the thoughts that came to me on this subject, how we can distinguish and the importance of distinguishing this question of intelligence. I think it's a very important and central question. As I mentioned here, it is a pivot that allows the human being to make a distinction, a most essential distinction between himself as spirit and as a material or a natural body. And thank you very much for listening. My humble gratitude to all of you people.
Maharaj, may we hear from you some concluding words?
Yes. I think in a very different way than which the others were speaking. So I didn't want to interrupt really and confuse anyone. The topic of the panel discussion was the what was that? How to explain what is beyond the mechanical description of life? Is that the correct topic?
Yes, yes, Maharaj. Yes.
How to explain life beyond the mechanical conception. So that was the topic of, supposed to be the topic of discussion. We got into many other things, which are also very interesting. But I would like to address that topic specifically. If I don't want to take everyone's time now because it's almost the end of the conference. And I consider the most fundamental and most central topic to be what philosophers have established since the time of Aristotle, actually, and also in Vedic times. And that is the concept of purpose. Aristotle called it final cause. And he attributed there were four aspects of force or explanation, one of which was the final cause or the actual purpose of a thing. We speak of existence, but existence has a purpose, which is not generally discussed or explained by science. So what is the purpose? We don't, if we say everything exists, what is the purpose for that existence? Why do they exist? What is it? What are they doing? Now, Aristotle said that was a very important part of understanding what things are, or what existence is, or what reality is. Without understanding that dimension, then we don't really or properly understand things. And in that book that we published, the Idols of the Mind, this was a central point, that the blind men, when they are touching the elephant without knowing what it was, were not able to properly define the various parts that they touched, the various parts of the whole. So without understanding the whole, the parts actually can't make any sense whatsoever. And that an analyzation method, the method of analyzing things, does take the parts as separate identities, independent of the whole. It doesn't concern itself with the whole, but only with the individual parts. That's what reductionism does. And mechanism means that it only regards the things of reality or the world as interacting with each other in an immediate way and in an arbitrary way. In other words, as happenings, mere happenings. Doesn't explain the necessity, any necessity between the happenings of the various interactions and actions of the things of the world. It doesn't concern itself with that, except in terms of laws, which are formalizations of what happens after the fact. Now, law means necessity. So there is necessity in the scientific worldview in terms of what we call laws, but those laws are posited, we might say de facto, without explaining exactly how they come from, but only in terms of what correlates with the data. For instance, when a star moves from here to here to here to here to here every night, we trace out the arc that the movement of the stars produces, and we attach a curve to that, which we calculate mathematically, or we explain mathematically, and that's it. That is our law, the law of motion. However, that doesn't explain motion. It doesn't explain why the stars move that way. So this kind of formalistic necessity is not real necessity, actual necessity. And yeah, I don't want to get too confusing. It is a very deep subject. But the point is that if we want to be truly philosophical in our understanding of things, we have to take what the philosophers have already established as essential points of consideration. And this idea of purpose or final end or whatever you want to call it is a central topic of philosophy since the time of Aristotle. And in a very important study that Immanuel Kant made so many thousands of years later, a couple of thousand years later, is that the feature that distinguishes life from matter is called Naturzweck. They call it Naturzweck, which means a purpose, a natural purpose. That life has as its fundamental principle purposefulness. Now, that is also called in philosophy teleology, that there is an end that things tend toward. And it's not merely a mechanical end, but it's an end that's contained in potential at the beginning. The whole potential for what is to come is already contained in the beginning. And then it manifests itself in the end. Now, science deals with cause-effect. Instead of purpose, they call it cause-effect. That something causes something else. And they try to explain things in that way. But it's not merely a cause-effect mechanical kind of relationship. It's more a rational type of cause. Rational cause means a logical necessity is involved. Reason means rational necessity. You can say what caused this, or why this happened because. You can say, but that because doesn't only mean cause effect. That because means why. What reason? So reason and cause are related. In the mechanical conception of reason, we call it cause. But in the logical, conceptual, philosophical sense, cause is actually the reason or rationality. And what Vedanta has also explained is that reality is not only some material, irrational substance that is happening from time to time in different configurations, but that the reality is rational. This is the foundation of science. The reality is itself rational. The rational means the real, and the real means the rational. Now, if that's the case, and this the Greeks understood also, Anaxagoras said that reason rules the world, or nous rules the world. That if the case is that actuality is actually rational, and reality is rational, and the rational is real, then we are living within a rational substance. And we can call that God. And everything has a purpose within that rational reality or reason. And it's explained in the Vedas what that is. That we are servants of God. That we have as our purpose for existence to please God, to be happy, blissful, ecstatic, and full of knowledge, and eternal in that existence. And it's not merely something to be analyzed and understood and utilized for other purposes. But ultimately, everything is purposeful. And this purpose, the scientists that came and the philosophers that came, they were talking about intelligence, how difficult it is to understand what that intelligence is. But if we recognize that everything has a purpose, that means it has a potential and it has a fulfillment, has an end, an aim, then we can recognize that there is some kind of directed movement. We can call it intelligence, but it's actually something more fundamental than that. It's something we can call reason. There is reason in everything. And that's why it appears to be intelligent to us. The intelligence is merely a superficial way of seeing what is in actuality the reason inherent in things. And the reason inherent in things is that because the reality of which those things are part is also rational. And therefore, Vedas speak of Krishna, a rational, personal being. Personal being means a rational person who can think, has reason, feeling, so many other things. So these are all tied together, and without that theistic view, it's very difficult to understand what is the reality of which we are part when we can't connect that reality with reason, with personality. It will be impossible to understand. According to Veda, this is the fact. So these points, I think, were not addressed. And although what they had to say is also very interesting, what you all contributed to, that was also very much appreciated. But my focus is more on purpose. What is purpose and how purpose rules the whole conception of reality, of science, of religion, everything. And that life is fundamentally purposeful, as Kant has concluded, and Hegel and other philosophers have agreed. And like I said, this is something that we find all the way back to Aristotle and before that in the Vedic culture. Sarva karana karanam. There is something that is cause and cause. And that is God, that is Krishna. And that is called reason. Anyhow, there's a deep topic, a broad topic. I didn't want to get into all of that because I think that would have passed what everyone wanted to say. And we wanted everyone to have something and a chance with this conference to express their views, express their thoughts and their feelings, and to discuss them with one another. My humble obeisances to you all. All right, namaste. Thank you, Dr. Panda, for your introduction. And I want to offer glorification to our Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the founder, Acharya of the Gaudiya Math, and Srila Prabhupada, who founded the ISKCON throughout the world, and to our Guru Varga, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Maharaj, and Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj, who have all been successive teachers in the line of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math. And I'd like to especially thank our Bhakti Niskam Santa Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Niskam Santa Maharaj, who did so much to organize this conference, as he has done every year throughout the past 10 years, is due to his strong faith and dedication, loyalty to his Gurudev and his service, that these conferences are actually made possible, and also the help of Srila Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj and the others, Dr. Sumangala and Krishna Keshava, so many other devotees who have tried to help, but the main work is single-handedly being done by Srila Bhakti Niskam Santa Maharaj. We offer great respect to him. He is now the President Acharya, Sevite President Acharya of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math and of the temple there in Nishringapali. So I'll try to be very brief today. I won't take up much time, so this way the other talks are not will not be delayed for too long. And in a brief way, try to summarize some of the things that I found in looking up this topic through Google research, and what has been the prominent understanding of these things, of the difference between the natural and artificial intelligence. what the philosophers and scientists have come up with as far as their understanding of the abilities of these machines. Of course, there seems to be a lot of hype, as we usually find in scientific advancement, scientific progress. They seem to want to encourage people to take a very serious interest in all these things in a very dramatic way. And that has its causes financially and otherwise. But what is the real substance of these things? That's what we want to discuss today, I think. And that is what our institute is interested in. We take great interest in the study of consciousness and intelligence, anything to do with the more subtle and spiritual phenomena of reality. We should not think that only material reality is sufficient to explain these things. We'll try to show how that is the case, that it is not possible actually to even define intelligence in terms of purely material substances or things. And this is being demonstrated by the kinds of machines that are coming out and being produced, and the philosophy behind that, the understanding behind that, the logic behind those things, will reveal to us actually what is the real situation, what we actually have to do in order to get for man to create an artificial intelligence or an artificial life. So let me start, if I may, with the definition that the common man and an intelligent dictionary gives. The definition that the dictionary gives for intelligence. Title of this talk, by the way, the computer smarter than a fruit fly. I got this from looking at some of the data, some of the things they've been saying about fruit flies, and I realized there's a great deal of study in these small organisms that has been going on for many years. Of course, because they're so simple organisms, yet they exhibit very complex behavior. And the attempts that are being made to duplicate or replicate that behavior through computers, and the success or failure that they've had. Anyhow, it's an interesting topic, and therefore I chose that as the title for this talk. So the dictionary definition of intelligence seems always to refer to the ability to understand. Intelligence is always referred to as the ability to understand, but we never hear about artificial understanding in the computer world. They say artificial intelligence, but the word intelligence, its root meaning has to do more with understanding. In German, the word Verstand, the Verstand, is there, and it means understanding. And Kant was able to show that there's a difference between understanding or Verstand and reason, what you call Vernunft. Vernunft in German means reason, and Verstand in German means understanding. So there's reason and there's an understanding or intelligence. Generally, understanding has been referred to as intelligence. So, but we don't hear this word, this phrase, intelligent understanding, ever spoken in the computer world, and there's a reason for that, of course. In fact, the hallmark of computer performance is that they never understand anything that they are doing. because they are simply mechanical devices. There is no question of understanding. They spew information of all types and even certain decisions, but the understanding of what they're doing is not there. They cannot tell us whether, or they cannot determine whether what they are saying, what output they are giving us, is true or not true. They do not come to that level of reflection on what they are doing. So now we can chat or talk with computer AI devices like Alexa or Siri, but we don't expect the device to understand the conversation. When a visual sensor detects an object and records the data for it on a computer, we do not expect the computer to understand that the object is, for example, an apple or the number 1. Even these simple things, they do not do. They record data, but they have no idea what it is they're recording. Roger Penrose, the great mathematician, argues that mathematical understanding is something which cannot be modeled in terms of entirely computational procedures or algorithms. A computer may use rational numbers in its processing, for instance, but it does not know it is using rational numbers, a fact which is very significant for mathematical philosophers. Now, there was an article by Peter Denning and Ted Lewis in Scientific American entitled "Intelligence May Not Be Computable." This article concludes, after analyzing a hierarchy of various levels of computer architecture, that human intelligence is not computable. In fact, the hierarchy shows that none of the machines so far built have any intelligence at all. Starting from earliest times, researchers realized that AI systems lacked even basic common sense. Now, there's a recent rage in the internet over what is called ChatGPT bot, which can give apparently authoritative text answers due to its large language database. However, one program developer warned, because the average rate of getting the correct answers from ChatGPT is so low, the posting of answers created by ChatGPT is substantially harmful. In other words, the bot does not know or even care if its answers are correct or not. So this is one of the dangers of using large databases of text and searching through that to get answers to certain questions, no matter how well written the answers are. Now, there's a biologist in Chile named Humberto Maturana and Francisco Varela, who wrote a book called The Tree of Knowledge in 1988. And they explained that the biological structure of an organism determines how it can interact, and that consciousness and thought will arise in networks of coordination of such actions. This means the dualistic model of autonomous software operating biologically simulated machines will not suffice to generate machine intelligence. The problem is that the intelligence, the software, which is usually referred to as the mind, and the computer itself, or the body, they have a relationship of autonomy or opposition to one another. This is called dualism. In Descartes philosophy, we find this same kind of dualistic conception being presented. He called it res cogitans, and to refer to the mind, and res extensus to refer to the body. The body was characterized as an extended substance, and the mind was characterized as a cognitive substance. And these two really don't have much in common according to Kant's idea. How the mind then influences the body has always been a problem with that type of dualistic thinking. Of course, that is a very basic and fundamental misunderstanding about the real nature of intelligence or subjectivity and objectivity. Now, we find a solution to this problem, a way to solve this problem, and a more rigorous and truthful understanding of this. And George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel's dialectical philosophy of identity indifference. Identity indifference, not identity and difference. Identity in difference. There is identity in differences. There's an identity between two things, even though they may be different. That type of logic is missing in the Aristotelian logic that neglects to take account of contradictory relationships. And computers also will have a very difficult time trying to adopt that type of contradictory logic as an acceptable means of performing calculations or decisions. So his idea was that the mind or the soul and the body, this duality is sublated by the dialectical relationship or activity that logically, as thought, holds between soul and body. That's a broad subject. We won't be able to discuss that now, but it is very, very important and can solve the mind-body problem with great precision and philosophical insight. Now, Heidegger argued that we can only have a concept of a hammer, for instance, because we grow up in a culture where such objects are familiar to us. Similarly, the Dreyfus thought that computers have no body, childhood, or cultural practice, and therefore could not acquire intelligence at all. This is a publication by H.L. and S.C. Dreyfus called Mind Over Matter, a Mind Over Machine, in 1986, that was published. So we do not have to be taught an algorithm or mathematical formalism in order to learn how to ride a bicycle. We have what the philosopher Polanyi called tacit knowledge. There was a book published by Michael Polanyi in 2009 called The Tacit Dimension, published then published in 1966. Basically, we learn or gain knowledge by lived experience. This is something that the computer cannot do because neither are they living nor they are embedded in an environment which they are aware of or become aware of or learn how to become aware of. Now we realize what this is saying is that how do we say something is intelligence? Well, we look at its activity. A living entity, an organism, even a one-celled organism, swimming in a liquid solution will go in a particular direction, whereas a non-living particle in the water will move in what they call a random walk. It won't go in any particular direction, but it'll be bounced here and there. However, a living organism will not suffer that kind of behavior. And so we call it intelligent or purposeful as the real significance. It has an intent, it has a purpose. And this is the fundamental understanding of what a living organism is as different from a non-living entity. Now, the next type of architecture, computer architecture, that might serve as the solution to this tacit knowledge problem is called the neural network, which tries to mimic the way the brain is structured with neurons in order to perform computations. It does not require automatic algorithmic programming to accomplish its work of correlation and probability calculation, what is called big data. This would seem to be to handle.
So I'm on to the other thing. If you want to just see if you find it interesting. If
This would seem to handle the problem of tacit knowledge, but it cannot avoid the problem that the data used is related to the human models by which it is collected. And this was pointed out by Ragnar Phelan, why general artificial intelligence will not be realized. And this was published in 2020. A modern idea that has become significant lately is called the connectome, comprehensive maps of neuron connectivity to better understand the structural functional relationship of the brain. So far, the only complete connectome that has been produced in the animal kingdom belongs to the humble roundworm, or C. elegans, with 302 neurons. But what is the result of having this map? Anthony Mupshon of New York University said, I think it is fair to say that our understanding of the worm has not been materially enhanced by having that connectome available to us. We don't have a comprehensive model how the worm's nervous system actually produces the behaviors. What we have is a sort of bed on which we can build experimental experiments. And many people have built many elegant experiments on that bed, but that connectome by itself has not explained anything. Others claim that such diagrams provide useful examples of how neural circuits work. There's an article in Scientific American on the connectome debate. Is mapping the mind of a worm worth it? At 2012. Now, the often studied brain of a fruit fly, drosophila, is only about the size of a poppy seed. It comprises roughly 100,000 neurons. Fruit fly brain consumes only a few microwatts of power, yet is still able to integrate multisensory information, act as the flight, and control over relatively complex behavior in order to survive. Much of its connectome has also been mapped out. Conventional computers are no way near as efficient as an average computer sensor node consumes about 1 milliwatt of power, which is around 1,000 times more than that used by the fruit fly. Freedom of action from automatic impulses is considered a hallmark of cognition or intelligence. What our findings show is that fruit flies have a surprising mental capacity that has previously been unrecognized, shown by the Oxford University News and Events that is talked about in May 2014. Computers are simply unable to replicate the integral multisensory navigational abilities of a fruit fly. What to speak of the engineering feat of producing an aeronautical device of such miniature size. Contemplating such things may help to create a humble appreciation for the amazing features of nature and the infinite spiritual potential of human nature that lies beyond the formal intellectual framework of which we are capable. Getting back to the Maturana's work, Maturana and Varela, on what they call autopoietic systems. Autopoietic systems are able to, are unities that are able to organize themselves and reproduce themselves. That is called autopoietic by them, and they have given a good model of what an organism must be, and how we can call it intelligent from a biological viewpoint. And the attempt to create computers, autopoietic computers, is being made, but so far they have not been successful to create such a thing. There's an autopoietic, let's see, there's a video, YouTube video on the autopoietic machines beyond half-brain AI and church Turing thesis. If you want to look that up on the internet, yeah, I think we're going to show that, but it's about 20 minutes long. So you can look that up on your own and try to see the attempts that are being made to create such things. Of course, this would be the, like I mentioned here, the half-brained AI. Half-brained AI means they separate the software and hardware as an interacting whole. That is not autopoietic processes. It will never obtain a living or intelligent organism on the basis of such dualistic thinking. So this is the main point we wanted to point out today. And I'll stop here. So this way we'll have some idea of what is available, what present ideas on these things are. And we'll leave that to you for further research and investigation. Wish you all a very good conference. We hope it will be fruitful and valuable to all of you who are participating, and anyone who wants to read about this after the conference speeches are put up on the internet. Then we hope that you will all get some benefit from it. My humble gratitude to you all. My humble obeisances. Jai Gurudev. Thank you.
Some of the impersonal I would just like to briefly summarize some of the important points that Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj brought to our notice. First of all, he tried to question the materialist account of intelligence and consciousness. According to him, only material things are not sufficient to explain consciousness. They are not learning machines. So our ability, he talked about three kinds of abilities: the abilities to learn, ability to understand, and ability to reason, are importantly connected to the biological functions of the being. And so therefore, in this context, he tried to brought two important philosophers like Karl Popper and prosal converse, and he tried to project us this idea that how important and how difficult it is to understand gestures. We're not like, learning things as he talked about the dictionaries and other things, but then he tried to brought that how biological bodies function, referring to the fruit fly. So it is in this context he tried to made a good comparison between artificial system, which has a fixed mechanical and rigid mechanical body, and the lived experiences. So with this few points that I could gather from his talk, now I open it for discussion. So some questions from the audience.
There is a very important property of the brain physiology and the structure of the neural nets. It's called the neural net spin glass identity. I ask.
Can you able to hear, Maharaj?
Because it is the property that enables
Can you able to
the
hear?
brain and consciousness to encode ideas. Thank you.
I didn't get the question.
Srila Shanta Maharaj, we can hear, but
Maharaj,
the
you have to listen his question.
Yeah, can you repeat the question? What is the question actually?
Can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, go
Can you
ahead.
hear his question?
Yes.
You would like to address that?
I'm not sure what he was asking. How does a neural net give us intelligence? What was the question exactly?
There is a very important property of the brain and the neural networks. It's called the neural network spin glass identity. It's what enables the brain to encode and consciousness to encode ideas, not just digital information.
Oh,
But did you understand, Maharaj?
yes.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the spin glass. I have not heard that term before. Of course, that is not my field of expertise, and only I was giving a summary of various papers that I have read on the subject. But yes, I know that they have programmed computers to deal with concepts or ideas rather than just simply data and other such things. Problem is, there is no self, we could say, in computer. There is no unity of the various concepts in a total comprehension. As I mentioned in my talk, the computers can give us output to answer questions, but they cannot determine whether their answers are the truth or not. Computers do not determine the truth of their own statements because they lack that fundamental comprehension, ability to comprehend what they are dealing with. This is the missing dimension in computer
Oh, goodness.
intelligence.
We lost them.
So I know they have done work with conceptual computers working on concepts, but again, the unifying comprehension of the results of their output have not been satisfactory for explaining the activities of a genuine consciousness, of natural consciousness. Do you know any computers that can tell whether whatever they put out is the truth?
Currently, we are not.
Huh?
Currently, we lost Shanta Maharaj.
Oh, they're not there.
Yeah, we lost them. While we wait for Srila Shanta Maharaj to reconnect, are there any questions from the audience here on Zoom? Namaste. Jinan, do you have a question or a comment that you'd like to share?
Sorry for this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, this topic has been of great interest to me. And I have basically looked at what is happening to children. And from that, I have prepared a very small presentation. But anyway, what I would like to say is that today, artificial intelligence is being developed by researching on how children learn. That is what most of the, almost everybody involved in trying to develop artificial intelligence is learning how children learn. And I find it absolutely absurd in the sense that the same children are being completely dumped, completely made into idiots by the same artificial intelligence. And I find that this is a very, very, extremely unethical activity. And I think there is another very important point that I've realized is that the first artificial brain, or I would call it the unnatural brain, is the brain of the literate people. I know this will be very little difficult for you to accept, but you see, we are biologically equipped to learn the real world. But right from childhood, we are being taught the written word. Naturally, the brain that gets developed because of literacy is completely different. We are not biologically equipped to deal with literacy at all. Language has a completely different, position in the natural system, in cognition, actually. So there is a complete rewiring that is happening. And so this has been my, almost my 30 years of research is on how literacy damages our natural brain. So I think in order to truly understand how artificial intelligence destroys us, I think we have to really understand how the non-literate people understand the world, because they don't create knowledge that is anti-life. The whole modern knowledge system that is anti-life is created by educated people. So the first level of destruction to the human brain is done by literacy. And I know this is going to be very difficult for most literates to understand, but it is very common sense. And I was able to understand this because I stopped reading for almost 10 years. I completely stopped reading and my cognitive system rewired. I stopped reasoning, I stopped thinking, and I began to see. And it is very strange that today in the cognitive sciences, hardly anybody talks about senses and observation as that fundamental, activity. It's always on thinking. But where do you get thought from? So, I mean, I just wanted to share this small point and in a later time, but I have a very good documentation on this, how, and I have been actually living with rural tribal people, and I have a fantastic documentation about more than 4,000 videos on children. And I've been able to really decode the whole structure of how children understand the world. How do they make sense of the real world, not the written word? And this is a study that hardly anybody has done. And right now, what is happening in the research on children vis-a-vis the developing artificial intelligence is also wrong, because they're actually treating children in a laboratory situation. They are learning children within a laboratory situation, and that itself is problematic. That's not how children actually naturally learn. So even that is going to be completely wrong, actually.
Thank you. Yes, I mentioned that also in my talk. When Heidegger brought up the problem, he said, how do we know what a hammer is if we've never used it?
Yes.
We haven't grown up in our culture to know what a hammer is. You say hammer to a computer, what is it going to think? Used to drive nails or whatever. It doesn't know what a hammer is. It simply gives a definition, but it has no idea what it is. There's no concept. And that's not how we live our life. We live what we live. We learn the concepts through living. We learn what intelligence is through practice. A small child, 5-year-old child, can learn how to ride a bicycle. But what is the formula for learning how to ride a bicycle? Computer can't be given that formula or algorithm. So these things, what we have like you said, we do not have proper understanding of learning. Education, the word education comes from the Latin educare, which means to draw from the individual what is there implicitly. But today education is the opposite. It tries to push in so much data, so much information, rather than drawing out what is there implicit in the individual. So I agree with you. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.